Sovereign Self by Acharya Shunya shares ancient wisdom from the Vedas, Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita. These texts, written thousands of years ago in India, answer important life questions and offer guidance that is still useful today. What will you learn from this book? This book teaches you how to find true happiness and freedom by understanding who you really are. It explains that many ideas about happiness are illusions and shows how to recognize good desires versus bad ones. You'll also discover how complimenting those you often criticize can bring you peace. Who should read this book? This book is for anyone seeking deeper understanding of themselves and wanting to live a happier, more authentic life. If you're curious about ancient wisdom and how it applies to modern life, this book is for you. Sovereign Self, claim your inner joy and freedom with the empowering wisdom of the Vedas, Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita. Spark 1. Understanding the Self, the core of Vedic wisdom. Thousands of years ago, in the land we now call India, wise men and women known as rishis and rishikas received profound insights about life and existence. They recorded these revelations in sacred texts called the Vedas. These ancient scriptures, which came before Hinduism, have influenced many religions in India, including Jainism and Buddhism. The Vedas are divided into 4 books: Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda. They tackle big questions that humans have always asked, like who am I really? And why aren't I happier? Even though these texts are very old, their teachings are still relevant today. At the heart of Vedic wisdom is the idea of self-knowledge. The word Veda itself means knowledge in Sanskrit. The Vedas focus on 2 main types of knowledge. 1. Dharma. This is about ethics and how to live a good life. 2. Atman. This is about understanding your true self. The Vedas teach that your true self, or Atman, is connected to the infinite, the ultimate reality of existence. They say that the self of each person is the same as the self of the universe. When you discover your Atman, you find a source of complete wisdom and joy. You also learn to live in harmony with the ultimate reality. The exciting thing is that your true self is always there, waiting to be discovered. Even when you're feeling down or confused, your Atman is still present. Finding your true self isn't about going on a long journey to find something new. Instead, it's about looking inside yourself and remembering who you really are. Why is it so hard for us to see our true selves? The Vedas say it's because we spend too much time worrying about the outside world, things like money, possessions, and other people. But these external things are just distractions. As one wise sage put it, the self alone is worthy of seeing, hearing, contemplating, and realizing, because the self alone is the supreme truth. When you rediscover your forgotten self, something amazing happens. You break free from the desires that keep you trapped in a cycle of suffering. You find a deep sense of purpose, belonging, and well-being. This is what the Vedas promise, a path to authentic living and true happiness. Spark 2. The mirage of external happiness. Imagine a beautiful palace made entirely of mirrors. In the center of this palace is a courtyard with a rare and stunning rose. The rose's image is reflected in hundreds of mirrors throughout the palace. One day, the king who built this palace releases a pigeon inside. The pigeon, enchanted by the sight of the rose, spends weeks trying to reach it. But every time it flies towards what it thinks is the rose, it hits a mirror instead. Eventually, the pigeon grows tired and sad. It stops its frantic flying and lands on the ground, right next to the real rose in the courtyard. This story from the Vedas isn't really about pigeons and roses. It's a metaphor for how we often search for happiness in the wrong places. The pigeon represents our ego, always chasing after things it thinks will bring joy. The mirrors are like the external world, full of illusions that distract us from what truly matters. The Vedas teach us that real happiness comes from within ourselves. In other words, you are your own happiness. The Bhagavad Gita, another important Hindu text, says that a truly happy person has achieved the self. This means that being authentically yourself brings joy. But too often, we're like that pigeon, thinking happiness is out there somewhere. We believe we'll be happy when we get new clothes, have more sex, eat delicious food, earn more money, buy a house, or find our soulmate. The problem is, these things aren't real happiness, they're just mirages. You can see how futile this pursuit is when you actually get the things you thought would make you happy. That new outfit gets old, your partner's quirks start to annoy you, the cake is quickly eaten, and you're left wanting more. So the chase continues, and you keep banging your head against mirrors, so to speak. The Vedas contrast this endless search for happiness in the external world with something called Ananda, the inner joy of the true self. Ananda is different because it doesn't need anything from the outside world to exist. Unlike the pleasure we get from our senses, Ananda doesn't fade over time. So what does Ananda look like in real life? It's a state where you don't crave anything and you're content to simply be. Remember the pigeon in the story, it found the rose when it stopped searching. It's the same with happiness, you find it when you stop chasing after it in the world around you and instead look within yourself. Spark 3. The choice of suffering. The Vedas teach us about 2 levels of existence. The first is called Jagat, which is the world we share with other people and objects. Jagat is neutral, it doesn't cause happiness or sadness on its own. It simply exists. But we know that joy, misery, and suffering are real experiences. So where do they come from if not from the world itself? According to the Vedas, we create them ourselves. Here's how it works: we don't interact with Jagat, the world, as it really is. Instead, we judge it based on our own personal standards, beliefs, hopes, and expectations. This personal way of seeing the world is called samsara, and it's the second level of existence. When the world, Jagat, doesn't match up with our personal view, samsara, we feel sad and suffer. But expecting the world to fit our ideals is a mistake. When we accept things as they are, we realize that we don't have to suffer. Think about this: there are 7 billion people on Earth. Each one of us is constantly creating and changing our own samsara, our personal, myth-based view of the world. That's 7 billion bundles of likes and dislikes, ideas, habits, and deep-seated mental patterns. This explains why people can respond so differently to the same situation. Let's look at an example. Imagine 2 people who lose their jobs on the same day. Their economic situation is the same, but their reactions are completely different. The first person takes the job loss in stride. She sees it as an opportunity to try something new, even calling it a sign from the universe. The second person feels upset and ashamed. He thinks if he'd worked harder, he wouldn't have lost his job. He starts to feel resentful, remembering all the times he's been treated unfairly in life. The reality of the situation is the same for both people, but their subjective responses lead to very different experiences of suffering. The Vedas describe samsara as a kind of hypnosis. Once we're caught in it, it's hard to break free. The only way to avoid this trap is to accept Jagat, the world, as it is, without imposing our personal judgments and expectations on it. Spark 4. Healthy versus unhealthy desires. The Vedas teach us that desire is the root of unhappiness, and it all starts in the mind. Desires are unconscious drives that, when they rise to the surface of our conscious mind, become cravings. Whether we're craving nicotine, fame, sex, or revenge, these desires pull us away from our inner self and towards the external world, that distracting palace of mirrors we talked about earlier. To break free from this trap, we need to pay closer attention to the nature of our desires. The Vedas make an important distinction between healthy and unhealthy desires. Unhealthy desires, called vasanas, are the cause of mental restlessness. These are compulsive desires that demand to be fulfilled. Whether it's ice cream, a promotion, a new car, or a lover, vasanas are directed towards things we believe will make us happy. When we're in the grip of vasanas, our minds go into overdrive. Every thought revolves obsessively around the object of our desire. But even when we get what we want, it doesn't bring us peace. Like addicts, we immediately start looking for the next thing, another scoop of ice cream, a new lover, or an even bigger car. So how can we escape this cycle? Interestingly, the Vedas don't tell us to give up all earthly desires. Instead, they encourage us to cultivate healthy desires, called purusharthas. Healthy desires are non-binding. Think about the difference between wanting a cup of tea and craving a cigarette. You might love drinking tea, but if you can't find a tea shop, you probably won't feel irritable. Smokers, on the other hand, often feel miserable if they can't satisfy their craving. It's important to note that even non-binding desires can become binding over time. The author shares a personal example of how her habit of taking afternoon naps started as a simple pleasure but eventually became a compulsion. When she couldn't nap, she would get annoyed. If you notice this happening with any of your habits, it's a good idea to take a break from them. The author resisted her nap craving for a month, choosing to read a book or go for a walk instead. Soon, the binding nature of this desire disappeared. By paying attention to our desires and cultivating healthy ones, we can find greater happiness and peace of mind. Spark 5. Building better relationships through self-discovery. The idea of union is powerful in many cultures and religions. We often hear about union with God, the union of marriage, or the search for a soulmate. But how does this idea of union fit with what we've been discussing about discovering the self? Isn't there a contradiction? Doesn't union mean losing yourself in something greater? According to the Vedas, there's no contradiction at all. In fact, they teach that knowing yourself is the foundation for strong unions with others. The Vedas use the Sanskrit term yoga, which means union or yoking, to talk about this concept. True yoga happens when you look for an equal partner in life. Relationships often go wrong when we seek the wrong things from them, for example, expecting someone else to take care of all our emotional needs. When we believe it's someone else's job to fulfill our needs, we're outsourcing our well-being. This isn't a good long-term plan. Even if we could find someone who could satisfy all our deepest needs, which is unlikely, there's no guarantee they'll always be around. Relationships are temporary by nature. Partners can disappoint us, betray us, or even die. That's why it's so important to take responsibility for our own happiness. This is where the concept of viyoga comes in. Viyoga literally means separation, but it's better understood as emotional detachment. The Vedas say that to achieve true union, yoga, we first need to practice viyoga. Viyoga is about cultivating the most important relationship of all, the relationship with yourself. It's like an exercise in self-definition. Ask yourself, who am I? What are my values? What are my goals? What issues are non-negotiable in my life? When you embark on this journey of self-discovery, you'll uncover your gifts, needs, and priorities. These form the foundation of your personal power that's often wasted in manipulative relationships that we enter into without really knowing ourselves first. It's important to remember that viyoga isn't about being selfish or indifferent to others. It's about taking a step back to understand yourself better, which ultimately allows you to form healthier and more meaningful connections with others. This is how you achieve true yoga, union based on self-knowledge and mutual respect. Spark 6. The power of meditation. We've talked about finding your true self by calming your restless mind and stopping the cycle of thoughts and desires. One of the oldest and most effective techniques for achieving this state of mind is meditation. There are two main approaches to meditation in the Vedic tradition. The first, practiced by advanced spiritual seekers, aims to completely silence all thoughts. This is a challenging goal for most people. The second approach, which dates back to around 500 BCE, takes a different tack. Instead of trying to banish all thoughts, it focuses on changing the content of our thoughts. This is based on a teaching from the Upanishads, the last section of the Vedas, that says we become what we believe. When we contemplate an idea that reveals our true selves, that idea becomes part of us. Here's how you can practice this type of meditation. 1. Choose a thought to contemplate. Pick something that will help reveal your true self and resonates with you. For example, if you're struggling with fear, you might choose I am fearless. Other options could be I use a body, but I am not the body, or I am peaceful. 2. Get comfortable and close your eyes. Imagine a tortoise withdrawing into its shell. Like the tortoise, you're pulling your attention away from everything around you and focusing inward. 3. Visualize a warm, radiant light emanating from the center of your forehead. Take your time to imagine this comforting light in detail. You should start to feel more relaxed and self-accepting. 4. And now, turn your mind to your chosen thought. Dwell on it, and gently bring your attention back to it when your mind wanders. 5. As you focus, the thought, like I am fearless, will start to become a feeling. Allow yourself to experience and savor this feeling. What does it feel like to be fearless? Sit with this sensation. 6. Gradually, you'll start to embody this quality. You'll feel yourself becoming fearless, a feeling you can then apply to challenges in your daily life. Regular practice of this meditation technique can help you get in touch with your true self and cultivate positive qualities that enhance your life. Spark 7. Changing thoughts in daily life. Meditation is a powerful tool for calming the mind and changing the nature of our thoughts. But most of us can't spend all day meditating. We have jobs, families, and responsibilities to take care of. So how can we stay connected to our true selves even when we're not meditating? The Vedas offer a technique called Pratipaksha Bhavana, which means opposite emotion in Sanskrit. Here's how it works. When you have a negative thought, deliberately think the opposite. You can call this practice deliberate opposite thoughts. For example, if you find yourself constantly criticizing someone, think of a sincere compliment for them instead. If you often put yourself down or minimize your achievements, make an effort to acknowledge praise and take credit where it's due. If you feel jealous of someone's success, try to be genuinely appreciative of their accomplishments. If you're being conceited, practice humility. You can reinforce this technique by extending it to your actions as well. When you catch yourself being inconsiderate, make a gesture of compromise or accommodation. If you're avoiding chores like doing the dishes, go straight to the kitchen and clean up. When you find yourself wasting time on social media, pick up a book or watch an informative documentary instead. Every time you change a negative thought or action into its opposite, you're taking control away from your lower self, the ego, and giving it to your higher self, your true, sovereign self. With practice, this becomes second nature. The benefits of this technique are significant. Instead of being overwhelmed by negative thoughts, you'll start to see yourself as a positive force in the world. Most importantly, you'll be showing your mind who's really in charge, your true self. This practice, combined with meditation and the other teachings from the Vedas, can help you open a new chapter in your life. You'll be on your way to discovering your true self and experiencing the authentic happiness and freedom that comes with it. In conclusion, the ancient wisdom of the Vedas offers a timeless guide to self-discovery and spiritual liberation. By turning our attention inward, cultivating healthy desires, practicing meditation, and consciously choosing positive thoughts and actions, we can break free from suffering and find genuine happiness. This journey of self-discovery isn't about escaping the world, but about living in it more authentically and joyfully. Remember, as you struggle to be yourself, take inspiration from nature's simplicity. Just as daffodils don't try to be roses and apple trees don't try to grow mangoes, you don't need to be anyone other than who you truly are. In the words of the Vedas, your true self is already perfect and complete, you just need to rediscover it.